The Korean War, spanning from June 25, 1950, to July 27, 1953, marked a significant conflict involving the United States and other United Nations, UN, member states in support of South Korea against North Korea and its communist allies, primarily China and the Soviet Union. On June 25, 1950, North Korean forces launched a surprise invasion of South Korea, crossing the 38th parallel with the aim of reunifying the peninsula under communist rule. The North Korean People's Army, KPA, quickly overwhelmed South Korean forces, capturing the capital, Seoul, within 3 days. In response to the North Korean aggression, the United Nations Security Council convened and passed Resolution 83, recommending military assistance to South Korea. On the same day, U.S. President Harry S. Truman announced that American forces would support South Korea, marking the beginning of U.S. military involvement. Truman's decision was influenced by the desire to contain communism and support the UN's collective security framework. U.S. forces, under the command of General Douglas MacArthur, quickly moved to support South Korean troops. By July, American ground forces had arrived, but they faced fierce resistance from the KPA. The situation was dire, with U.S. and South Korean forces being pushed back to the Pusan perimeter, a small defensive line in the southeastern corner of the peninsula. Despite initial setbacks, the combined forces managed to hold the line, preventing a complete North Korean takeover. One of the most significant turning points in the Korean War was the successful amphibious landing at Incheon, orchestrated by General MacArthur. This bold and risky operation aimed to cut off North Korean supply lines and relieve pressure on the Pusan perimeter. The Incheon landing was a resounding success, leading to the recapture of Seoul and a strategic reversal in favor of UN forces. Following the Incheon success, UN forces pushed northward, crossing the 38th parallel and advancing towards the Yalu River, the border between North Korea and China. The objective was to eliminate the North Korean threat and reunify Korea under a non-communist government. As UN forces approached the Yalu River, China, fearing encirclement and the spread of anti-communist forces on its border, intervened with a massive influx of troops. The Chinese People's Volunteer Army launched a surprise counteroffensive, catching UN forces off guard and pushing them back into South Korea. The Korean War entered a new phase of stalemate in early 1951, with front lines stabilizing near the 38th parallel. Both sides engaged in brutal and costly battles, including the Battle of the Imjin River and the Battle of Heartbreak Ridge. Despite heavy casualties, neither side could achieve a decisive breakthrough. Recognizing the futility of further large-scale offensives, both sides began armistice negotiations in July 1951 at Kaesong, later moving to Panmunjom. These talks were protracted and contentious, with issues such as prisoner exchanges and the exact demarcation line causing significant delays. The U.S. presidential election in 1952 brought Dwight D. Eisenhower to power, who was committed to ending the war. Meanwhile, fighting continued along the front lines, with both sides launching limited offensives to improve their negotiating positions. After 2 years of arduous negotiations and continued fighting, an armistice agreement was finally signed on July 27, 1953. The agreement established the Korean Demilitarized Zone, DMZ, a buffer zone roughly along the 38th parallel, and created mechanisms for the exchange of prisoners of war. However, a formal peace treaty was never signed, leaving the Korean Peninsula technically in a state of war. The Korean War was a complex and multifaceted conflict that saw significant U.S. involvement from its inception to the signing of the armistice. The war highlighted the geopolitical tensions of the Cold War era, the challenges of limited warfare, and the difficulties of achieving lasting peace in a divided region. The legacy of the Korean War continues to influence U.S. foreign policy and the security dynamics of Northeast Asia to this day.